Good morning. There we go. That's better. What was I thinking? Yeah, I like that picture because it was taken a few years ago. It made me look a bit younger. And also, if you remember, 3 years ago on Easter Sunday, that was our induction service, wasn't it? Do you remember that? Yes. So we've definitely done over 3 years here at Eldad. The removals company are at our door as we speak now. And how wonderful it is, and how wonderful it's been to serve you as a pastor. And, you know, we're at exciting times. I believe God is doing good things. And it's a real privilege to be pastoring you lot. How fabulous you are. Anyway, today, don't leap ahead too far. What on earth? The resurrection. What on earth? What's that all about? Resurrection? You can't rise from the dead. You can't rise from the dead. But we're talking about that today. Let me tell you a little story. This is from Denmark. This is a little picture of a lighthouse there. This is the Rubying Knuder lighthouse in Denmark. It was built in 1900. And obviously designed to guide ships safely through the seas, the troubled seas, the rough seas of North Sea. That's where it was. But because its powerful beam shone across those waters, but because of shifting sands and coastal erosion, the lighthouse started to get buried, and the 23-meter structure was soon buried almost entirely. And it was built in 1900, and in 1968, they turned the light off. That's what they did. They turned some of the buildings that were around it into a museum and a cafe and things like this, but even those soon were overwhelmed by the sand. In 2019, though, the government of Denmark decided, well, this is a beautiful building. We need to preserve it. It's history. It's history. That's what it is. We need to keep it special. So they dug out this lighthouse, and they constructed special rails, and they moved it 70 meters up the hillside so it would no longer be affected by the sand and the coastal erosion. And there it stands to this day, but there is no light that comes from it. A lighthouse without light, or a car without an engine, a school without teachers, a hospital without doctors, a computer without software, a concert without musicians, a garden without plants, a pen without ink, a recipe without ingredients, Easter without chocolate. Christianity without the resurrection is meaningless and empty. Christianity without the resurrection is meaningless and empty. There it says it. That's what Paul writes. And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. If Christ is not actually risen from the dead, then what we are doing today is a complete waste of time. I think sometimes people might think of Christianity that, like the Danish government, we are sort of preserving some relic, some nostalgic thought about Jesus Christ. We're thinking, well, Christianity is nice. They've got nice buildings. They sing some nice songs. There's some of the great works of art. Some of the great music was constructed as a consequence of Christian faith. But today they're just supporting an old relic. But I want you to know today that if Christ has not been raised, you're wasting your time. Today we celebrate that Christ has been raised. Today we are celebrating that Christ has been raised. And actually, do you know what I'm going to do today? I'm actually giving you a little bit of help, because I actually want you to be reminded of some of the evidence. Now, I don't need to do the evidence with you. I don't need to do it, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't have an understanding that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. But I think sometimes when some people ask you and talk to you about this faith that you have, sometimes you're thinking, well, what do I say? You know, Jesus is alive. Most people are thinking, well, it's a little fairy tale. Yeah, it's a nice little story. Yes, once it had some power and influence, but today, do we really still believe that stuff? So I want to give you a little bit of reminder, a little bit of help, so you know that what you believe is based not just on tradition, but upon the best available evidence. Can we have a little amen? And that's why it's called What on Earth is my sermon title, because, yes, I've done a little acronym. We love an acronym, don't we? Yeah. Who uses acronyms a lot at work? Put your hands up now. Yes, yes. Who's got a favorite acronym? Yes, do you have a little? Yeah, who works in education? Yes. Yes, so there's acronyms, aren't there? Lovely acronyms. We love an acronym, so here we go. Earth, what on earth? Yes, so I've got E stands for empty tomb, A stands for appearances, R stands for reliable writings, T stands for transformation, and H stands for historical agreement. What on? Well done, well done. All right, I hope this goes well, because it really should. It really should. Anyway, let me just tell you. Right then, so first and foremost, the empty tomb. The empty tomb, now there's witnesses to the empty tomb. Yes? Jesus' disciples went to the empty tomb. They saw the tomb was empty. Now, it's fabulous that Peter and John and all those other disciples saw the empty tomb. But what's even more spectacular about the empty tomb is that women were the first witnesses of Jesus Christ's resurrection. Yes? So they were the first people who went to see the empty tomb. That's what they saw. Now, women's testimony was not allowed in a court of law. In Jewish culture at that time, they'd not quite worked out that the women are smarter than men. Yes? So at that time, a woman's testimony was not allowed in the court of law. So if you are making up a story, yes? If you are making up a timeless myth, yes? Do you use in your story the best possible witnesses or the worst possible witnesses? You use the best part. If you're going to make up a story, you're going to put the best stuff in there, aren't you? You don't put the rubbish stuff in there. The only reason that it is recorded that the women were the witnesses is because that's what happened. If it isn't what happened, well, they wouldn't have written it, you know, because even as they're writing it, they're going, well, you know, if it was a court of law, yes, their testimony wouldn't matter. They wouldn't be considered. But this is actually what happened. So we're going to have to write it down. That's number one. Also, the appearances. Now, this is really significant because up to 500 people saw Jesus. Now, you could say hallucination, couldn't you? Yes? And maybe you've been on high medication, you've overdone the paracetamol, yes? You've had a cold, gone for paracetamol and Nurofen. Woo! Look at you, yes? And it's like, whoa, yeah. And all of a sudden your husband looks handsome, yes, yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a scenario like that? Yeah? This hallucination that you have now. If you have 3 people who've overdone the Nurofen, yes, are they having the same hallucination? No! One seeing dragons. yeah. If 500 people see the same thing, that's not a hallucination, is it? The appearance, there's lots of those, wonderful. Then you have the reliable writings. Now, this is my favorite bit. This is my favorite bit. Your Bible, as Nicole led us through the Bible course just a few weeks ago, wasn't it wonderful just to see how reliable the Bible is? Yeah. And this is what I just love. Do you know who we find about just for New Testament writings? I'll just do a few of these. It's sort of, the New Testament is catnip for historians. They love it because they find out about all sorts of they find about Pontius Pilate, Herod the Great, Herod Antipas, Caiaphas, Gamaliel, Felix, Festus, Agrippa II, Gallio, loads of other significant historical figures. I've not even mentioned Caesar Augustus, yes? We hear about all of these fabulous historical figures from the Bible that historians look to these texts because they have reliability, yes? Now, what sometimes happens is a historian who doesn't believe in miracles reads those same texts. And so what the historian does is, oh, I like that bit about Pontius Pilate, but that's a miracle there that eyewitness is talking about. But I don't believe in miracles, so they disregard that bit. Now, is that good history? I don't think that's good history. There's your historical document recording the testimonies of witnesses. Your choice 2,000 years later, you can't say, well, I'm smarter than them. I know more than they did, yes? Their testimony is brilliant there, but not so good there. I don't think you can say that, can you? You can't say that. And also, what's really brilliant about the Gospels is just how early they were written. Now, I said the last bit was my favorite bit, but this bit's my favorite bit. Right then, this is how we know that they were written really early. So why that's significant is it means that the witnesses were all still alive. Yes? So if you think about it, those disciples, some of them were teenagers, some of them were in their early 20s when they started following Jesus, maybe when Jesus was crucified and resurrection. So we know that Jesus Christ was crucified and resurrected around AD 30. That's what we know. Yes, we know that. Now, we also know that the disciples were about sort of late teens, 20s. So we'll say 20 for ease of reckoning. That's what we'll do. Right then, so hold that in your mind. Yes? Now, we also know that the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts were written by who? Obviously. Well done. Top of the class, yes? So they're 2 volumes. 2 volumes by the same person. So was volume 1 written first or second? First, obviously. Right. So the book of Acts, can I just say, you're doing well to follow me so far, but you'll see how this works out. Yes, right. So the book of Acts ends with Paul under house arrest in Rome. So he's still alive. Now, we know that Paul died around 64 AD. So that means the book of Acts was written before 64 AD. We know that, yes? But we know that volume 1 must have been written before volume 2. So that means that was written before that. So it's probably the book of Luke recording the witness statements of the early disciples and the witnesses of the tomb, yes, was written before that, maybe late 50s. But for ease of reckoning, shall we just say 60? Just for ease of reckoning. So from AD 30, when Jesus rose again, to 60, that's 30 years. If you're 20 years old, that means you're just 50. So are you still able to give an accurate account of what happened? Yes, you are. And also, loads of the other New Testament writings were written before those things. The letters of Paul, the letters of Peter were all written earlier than that. And what do they keep banging on about? The resurrection. Huh? Anyway, I said that was my favorite bit. I'm just telling you that the documents that you read, they're not fairy tales. These are eyewitness statements, accurately gathered by conscientious people to record the events that actually happened, whether about Pontius Pilate or about the resurrection of Jesus Christ from a tomb. Also, the transformation. This is your T. So we've done E, empty tomb. A, I need my glasses on. So blind. Lord Jesus, I need the power of a resurrection on my eyes. Yes? The empty tomb, the appearances, the reliable writings, the transformation. Now, Jesus' disciples, when their teacher was crucified, when they fled from him in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Peter denied him, when they were hiding in the room, fearful for their lives after his death. Yes. They weren't world changers at that moment, were they? I don't know if you've ever been in a funk or a pit of despair, or in a period of deep and terrible grief, you're not ready to take on the world. Yet, just a few days later, these people who had been utterly, utterly broken by the events of the cross were all of a sudden delighted, jumping for joy, filled with hope and delight, and ready to preach, even if it meant losing their own lives. Now that is a transformation I am yet to see in a normal set of circumstances. So I suggest to you that what changed their attitude from devastated to fearless was the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And finally, the historical. You can go and Google this. You can go and do your own studies. In fact, I recommend that you do this because it's brilliant. It really will bolster your faith. Is that external witnesses, people without any connection to Christianity, also were witnesses or wrote about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So Tacitus and Josephus are extra historical figures, although their writings are not as brilliantly maintained as those of the early disciples, but nonetheless really helpful. So that's good. Is that helpful for you? Yes, that's helpful. Now, I've got so much to do. So much to do. Oh, look, see. So we've talked about that, If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, then your faith is useless. But then something amazing happens, doesn't it? If Jesus did rise from the dead, and that's not useless, is it? That's pretty significant. That means stuff. We were therefore buried with him through baptism into death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, we too may live a new life. If Christ has risen, then we too can live a new life. I love a buffet. I really love a buffet. An international buffet. Sometimes I'll walk into, and just like Nicole likes chocolate for breakfast on Easter Day, I used to walk into an international buffet. Maybe there's bread, freshly baked, the aroma filling the air. You can smell the pizza ovens further along, where the meatball pizza is cooking to perfection. Can you imagine this? Does anybody else like an international buffet? Anybody else? Put your hands up if you've been to an international buffet. Some of you haven't. Oh, they're usually all you can eat. They're all you can eat, so you need to know this. So just imagine that you're in that situation. You're there at the international buffet. I need my glasses. And there's the spring rolls. There's the soup. There's the grilled vegetables. There's the fruit platter. Who's going to go for the fruit platter? Well, maybe you're the healthy ones. The fried chicken, the salad bar. I like the salad bar. The curry, the barbecue ribs, a little bit of sushi, maybe some tacos, pasta. Can you imagine yourself piling up your plate? How high would you have your plate? Yeah, you'd have it high, wouldn't you? You'd fill it, you'd fill it and you'd stuff your face, yeah. And if you could, you'd go back for another helping, is that right? Yeah. And you'd hate it if you went to one of these places that gave you a small plate to start with. Because sometimes they do that, don't they? They'll give you a small plate and you have to go and you fill it and you fill it up. And anyway, let's presume you've had 3 helpings. 3 plates. Maynard, how high would you have your plate? Keep on going. Burn the calories. This is good. This is strategy. Yeah, just, And I just think, I can picture, sometimes just picture yourself there, and you've eaten so much food. It's been good. You're satisfied. And then you realize that the all-you-can-eat international buffet is actually an L shape, and you've missed a whole section. And you waddle over, going, oh, I think I'm going to die. I think I need a diabetic nurse. Yeah. You waddle over, and then you look down this section that you'd not before, and there's the grill, and the Wagyu beef, and the lobster. But it's too late. There's no room. There's no room. There's no room at the inn. There's no room in my tummy. And you look longingly down there, and you wave at the Wagyu beef, thinking, another time. And you've missed out because you filled yourself with good things, but not the best. And I think that if Jesus Christ is indeed alive, I think we have to address how we live. And I think sometimes in our lives here in 2025, we can fill our lives with all the good stuff. We can fill up on things which life gives to us. The generosity of the society in which we live, maybe the generosity of your own hard work, yes? You are experiencing the good things. But I want to say to you that as we celebrate the fact that Jesus Christ has indeed risen from the dead, I don't want any of us to miss out on the Wagyu beef. Even if you're a vegetarian, you can have the Wagyu lettuce. Yeah, the Wagyu nut roast. Yeah, you can have that, but there's so many people that we know whose lives are full of good things. Good things. But Jesus says, come to me. This is the best. This is life. This is resurrection life. I don't want you filling up your life with the good stuff and losing out on the best. I don't want you having a good and contented and fulfilled life in so many ways, but no, you don't receive what Christ has for you. Christ says, come. I am your creator. I'm the one who made you. I made you to live. I made you to live a life that reflected my image, a life that was fulfilling because it does the things of God. And Christ says to you and to me today, let's not miss out. Let's not accept what is good and lose the power of the resurrection as it shows itself in our lives. I want the musicians, if they can, make their way back. I've just got a little thing I want to do as we finish today. It's very simple. Just as they begin to play, I'm going to read you some words, and I'm going to lead us in a prayer. Praise you, Jesus. After the Sabbath, at dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now, I have told you. So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly, Jesus met them. Greetings, he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me. Today we've looked at the fact that Christianity isn't some preserved relic. We've looked at Christianity, and we're bold enough to say that if Jesus Christ has not risen from the dead, then we are fools wasting our time. We've looked at some of the evidence. Some of you might find that compelling, as I do. Some of you may still have questions, and I encourage you to do your own research. We've looked at the question of if Jesus Christ has indeed risen, then that means something very significant. That the God who created this world has sent his Son to rescue us and to offer to us new life, resurrection-filled life through Jesus. And as we can contemplate that, I want us to think about our lives. And I want us to think what fills up our lives. Am I filling my life up? Am I winding down the clock until I die? Or do I recognize the purpose that the risen Christ has for me? Shall I become a witness to the greatest of all events?